Welcome back, everybody, to Business Monday. It is live here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We're talking small biz. Matt is the guru over at Commerce RI, working on a lot of initiatives to help small businesses and to connect the business of Rhode Island to different business opportunities. Alison Bologna obviously was just on, singing your praises. I don't want to know what that envelope was that passed between the two of you, but she was all about you and the help that you've provided. Talk a little bit about the basic overview of the programs you run.
Absolutely, Josh. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely.
I'm born and bred Rhode Islander, so it was good to be part of a great local brand here, working with great companies. But my work at Commerce is a privilege in reality, and I manage our business advisory team. In that capacity, the program Supply RI that Alison mentioned is really one of my main areas of focus. And what we do with Supply RI is we really broker the interaction between the large anchor institutions in the state and the smaller, sometimes not so small suppliers that want to do business with those institutions. So it's really a great forum for suppliers, small businesses here in Rhode Island, which is the majority of our business footprint, and the large anchors to get closer together to increase those collisions to get some more business done.
That's great. And talk about some of the successes you've had. You know, Rhode Island's a very interesting place. It's very different from a business structure standpoint. We have a couple handfuls of major employers, but the vast majority of the state, about 32,000, are small businesses that employ 1 or 2 or 10 or 25, but not much more. When we talk about big business, in most of the country, that's actually a small business, right? But we've got the Textrons and the CVSs and the Hasbros.
Correct.
And some healthcare megalopocuses. Talk about some of those programs that you've worked on, and feel free to use Alison as an example, but also some others.
Great. So the large anchor institutions, as you mentioned, Josh, they represent a small portion of the volume of companies. But
Right.
when we look at the amount of employment that they purvey and the amount of discretionary spending, it's substantial. So given that substantial amount of spending, we want to help other local companies who are small businesses to anchor here in Rhode Island. And what's the best way to do that if they have large local clients?
Right.
So as much as possible, we try and broker those conversations because some suppliers may not be quite ready. Well, Supplier I, we have a solution for that. We have trainings, a number of convenings that we do to help suppliers prepare capability statements, understand the RFP process for some of the different anchors. Real questions. I'm a small business owner by trade, so I did business with the VA for many years, so I kind of understand the intricacies of doing business with a behemoth that can be a federal entity or a large private company. So,
Well, and if CVS calls you tomorrow and says to Alison, I want your bars in every single one of her stores,
Right.
her answer is
right.
because it's not possible to meet the demands of those. So what's that nurturing? What's that maturation process to be able to work with a CVS or a Hasbro and be a partner to them and a supplier and not fall flat on your face?
That's a great question. So a lot of companies have the same concern as well. And one of the things that Supplier I does is we do some Meet the Maker events. We do have some conversations as well. We've had 5 events so far via Supplier I and under a calendar year where we've convened the resources a little bit closer together. And sometimes those initial collisions yield that information. The what if scenarios, right? If only I could produce at a little bit larger scale, or if 2 or 3 institutions could combine their resources to order from me. Alison, the point about Alison's a great one, in that she says yes,
Right.
tongue in cheek, but the reality of delivering on that is a whole different story. So it's
that dream account comes and then it's like, oh my God, I've actually got to deliver upon it.
Right.
Talk a little bit about some of the successes you've had. Give another example outside of Alison's on a small incubating, growing, maybe it's been around for 30 or 40 years, but small business in Rhode Island, and leveraging your program to hook up with one of the bigger entities.
Great. So a great example is Central Paper out of Pawtucket.
Sure.
They won some business with the Rhode Island School of Design.
Great.
They actually beat out I won't name them, but a big box chain.
Yeah, beat the big boxes.
Right. So
yeah.
but one of the reasons, and this is one of the benefits of a great small state like Rhode Island, they won because of the proximity.
Yeah,
and
right.
They won because they were competitive on price. And
Right.
it was a really, really good story of how a local company with great capability can deliver on time and on target for one of these big anchors. So it was really a great example of them coming in using Supplier I's vehicles as a mechanism to start that conversation.
That's great.
It's been a great one.
And they're just in Pawtucket. Imagine if they were all the way in West Warwick. They couldn't possibly work together because that would be too far
They'd
in
have
the
to
Rhode
pack a
Island.
lunch,
That's
for
right.
some of those meetings.
What are the challenges, though, to connecting these dots? Is it the reluctance on the bigger institution to trust a small entity in the state and be worried that they can't meet the demand? Or is it the small entity not believing that they can really, that they should trust the relationship? Because they're going to have to make investments, right? You know, you start doing a deal and somebody's 50% of your business, it changes your business.
Absolutely, it changes your risk portfolio as well. So it's a great question. I think one of the things that we try and do at Supplier Eye, and by the way, it's not a lack of willingness on the part of the anchors. It's just a lack of understanding overall.
Sure.
What the capabilities of the other side are, what the requirements are. So we really sort of demystify that process a little bit. So we sit down with all the anchor institutions, talk in great detail about their process, what types of companies are generally more successful from the outset, and what types of companies they'd like to see in the process. So it's really kind of peeling back the onion and doing some of that elbow grease, that due diligence, and finding the opportunities. The other challenge is time.
Yeah.
Procurement cycles are not short, right? Especially for these large institutions. So some things may not be up for rebid for some period of time. So just kind of keeping everyone apprised of the timeline, and that's another challenge that we face.
If you had unlimited resources, how would this transform?
Just to be totally clear, I don't have unlimited resources. But if I did, I would absolutely bring on more anchor institutions to be a part of this. I would find a way to really spread the word in greater detail to the supplier base, because I think once we start to get the ball rolling with more and more of these success stories, I think suppliers will see that there's definitely a path.
Rhode Island's one of, I think, 5 states in the country that does not give a preference to in-state companies on bidding for state business. Have you guys talked at all about that?
That specific issue, no, but actually we've worked very closely with the Department of Administration, ODEO, to tackle some of these issues as part of the Supplier Eye framework. So we want to make sure that, we're getting the tactical wins, we're increasing the amount of collisions, but we're also thinking strategically about the problem set so that we get the cultural change, large scale throughout the state.
In some states, if it's an apples to apples, it's a slam dunk, the in-state company's gonna win hands down. In Rhode Island, there's no in-state win by preference at procurement, which doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. But way smarter people than you and I are making those decisions.
For me, but no, I appreciate that suggestion. I think we've got a lot of willing participants on the state side of the house, and how we can take the right cracks at this egg and really solve the problem for small businesses.
It's an interesting time. This is an economy in which there's lots of good indicators, and then there's some concerning indicators. The market went flying through the roof on news that the trade wars might be cooling, or at least we're taking a break between the United States and China. Unemployment is obviously low, but state revenues are missing estimates. So this convoluted mix of data points. What's your take on working with a lot of small businesses on where they are, how confident they are, and what they're concerned about?
I haven't built a small business about 200 feet away on Fountain Street here, and I'm intimately familiar with a lot of those issues. And I think the talent crunch is a serious one. I think the labor pool is shrinking every day. I think it means that companies have to work harder and be more diligent to find talented people out in the space. It's a big challenge because it's a competitive market, especially, there's a lot of talent in the state, but there's a lot of big companies and small companies that are competing for it. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And I think what we see too is that companies want to scale from within the state, and they have to find the right space footprint, the right logistics framework to do that. So we help with a lot of those issues and those inquiries on how can I grow. We were over on 40 Fountain Street when I was doing my thing, and we had part of the 8th floor, part of the 2nd floor. It was kind of piecemeal together, and it worked. But getting an out-of-the-box solution would have been optimal for sure.
Yeah, the space is bizarre and limited if you want to be in downtown Providence.
Historic, I think is another word that comes to mind. But
inefficient's also right up there, things like that. Listen, anything else we should know? And if somebody's tuning in, people may not understand what the scope of their company. Talk about the deep ends of who's sitting there. Is it everybody from a caterer on to a small manufacturer? Who should think about this program and give you a call?
when I started at Commerce, Josh, I was so surprised at the array of businesses and companies that, even being in the space for a while, I didn't know they existed.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of businesses out there that have really unique capabilities, and we definitely want to hear from everyone. We have events in Supplier Eye catered to manufacturing, food industry. We've had events based on personnel services, kind of a little bit more general type of activity and direct procurement. So if you're a business out there and you have questions about doing business with a large anchor institution, you can call the hotline, 521-HELP. Reach out. You'll get a member of my team, maybe even me.
Yeah, that's great.
But we're happy to answer questions and talk a little bit more about it. We can get suppliers registered in the database and keep you apprised of what's going on.
Great, Matt. Thanks so much. Stay right here. Going to wrap up for the 3 o'clock hour. We'll be back at 4 o'clock. Gary Sass, the money man, head of the Hassenfeld Institute up at Bryant University. And then at 4:30, Saul Kaplan from Biff will be on. And that 4 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking just about education, how the state's performing, and some of the shock waves that were sent through Rhode Island based on the recent test score results. Matt, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Absolutely. Keep us in touch on what's going on. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Business Monday, the Small Biz section here at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.